ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Monday Night Football Overtime. NFC West family business. You know how the family do it. Rams, Niners, 6 straight regular season wins for the San Francisco 49ers over these Los Angeles Rams. Extend that streak out to now 7 in a row as the 49ers dominate the game tonight. Really, the score doesn't tell the story. Now, I will say that the Rams got into the red zone 3 times, and if they scored just 2 touchdowns, not 3, just 2 touchdowns, this is a totally different ball game. Score is different, and this is maybe even a different outcome. But got to credit that 49ers defense. Right now, they're one of the best, if not the best, in the league statistically. They got it done again, and they've got injuries. You know, you heard about Javon Kinlaw not being in the lineup. You heard about Eric Armstead not being able to finish the game, didn't play last week, and they're finding ways to still get it done. And honestly speaking, they should have had at least 3 interceptions tonight. You think about the one dropped in the end zone. What did I tell y'all about Talanoa Hufunga? What have I told you guys about this dude from week 1 on to now? I've been talking about this kid every single week. He flashes every week. Week 1, he was all over the field against the Chicago Bears in a loss, and he made the slime game. And I told you guys, this is a dude that you're going to hear about week after week after week. He's not going away, and he arguably makes the biggest play of the night. Obviously, the Deebo Samuel catch and run will get all the headlines, and it'll be shown a million times. But Talanoa Hufunga's pick 6 sealed the deal tonight. I mean, this was a 1-score game at 17-9, and the Rams were on the move. And then he makes the play that he makes, and that sealed the deal for the night. So, it's a massive play by Talanoa Hufunga, and that's the second opportunity. And then, they had a couple of other balls that were batted in the air, or they had opportunities to go and get, and you had Fred Warner drop an interception. I struggle with Matthew Stafford sometimes. For as good as he is, and Matthew Stafford, there is greatness in his abilities, right? We've seen the clutch gene that he possesses. You give him the football late in the game, down 4, need a touchdown, less than a minute. There aren't many in the league better at getting it done than Matthew Stafford. There's a body of work there that is impeccable. However, it's what he does for the first, 58 minutes plus of the game that is just sometimes mind-boggling. And he takes sacks. He took sacks tonight. I think he was sacked either 6 or 7 times, including a fumble at the end. The game was already over by then, but that was the real cincher there, right? So he sacked 6 or 7 times tonight. He could have thrown 3 interceptions. He now leads the league in interceptions after he threw 1 tonight. He could have thrown 3. He led the league in interceptions along with rookie Trevor Lawrence, who doesn't know any better. Okay, rookies don't know any better. You're too old for that shit. Now, he did throw 40 touchdown passes, which offset the 17 interceptions that he threw last year. And he did win the Super Bowl, right? So there is that. But I said the same thing about Tampa Bay. I'm saying the same thing about the Rams, and these are 2 of the teams that everyone is projecting to be, around when, and they may ultimately be there when it's all said and done. But these are teams that a lot of people are projecting. If you go to Vegas odds in the NFC, Tampa Bay's 1, and the Rams aren't going to be that far behind. Okay, there's something off with both of these clubs. I've talked about with Tampa Bay, several different reasons. No Gronk. My guy Ree has said, look, we're missing the veteran leadership on defense, even though I think the defense is fine. He's like, we're missing Ndamukong Suh, we're missing JPP. These are guys that kind of kept the younger guys in check and made them put their foot on the gas, essentially. I also contend that they miss, Uncle Bruce on the sidelines, being the head coach. Todd Bowles is a really good dude. Really love him. I don't necessarily love his temperament as a head coach. I think he's perfect as a defensive coordinator, but when you give him the head coaching job, I don't necessarily know if he's cut out for that or not. Now, again, small sample size. We saw him with the New York Jets. He never really had a quarterback there. Now he's got Tom Brady, and he's got an elite defense and all the pieces there. He's got all the offensive weapons you could ask for, and yet they seem like they're running the football 80 times a game. So now they've had injuries at receiver. They haven't had a full complement of guys. They've had a revolving door there. Once they stabilize that, we'll see. The schedule should ease up a bit on the Buccaneers, and we'll see if they start scoring some points. But I don't really love the philosophical approach that they have going into games on a week-in, week-out basis. But again, we will see. He's treating, at times it feels like he's treating Tom Brady like he's still got Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback in New York with the Jets when he was the head coach there. But this Rams team, there's something off. We'll get to them in a second. I want to the victors go the spoils. I want to start with the San Francisco 49ers as they get the win. And there's just something about family business that's just different. It hits different. It feels different. And it looks different. And sometimes you just can't explain it, but that's what family business is all about. And this 49ers team just knows how to beat the Rams like no one else does. 7 straight in the regular season. Had them on the ropes in the NFC Championship game, really let them off the hook. And Rams fans will argue, well, if, Ben Skoranek doesn't drop a touchdown, in the end zone, we're not even having that discussion. Touche, fine. I hear all of that. But at the end of the day, we can always just circle back to if Jaquiski Tartt could catch a punt, which essentially was the ball that was thrown up to him by Matthew Stafford, they're in the Super Bowl last year. Anyway. This 49ers defense is filthy. I mean, it is absolutely nasty. I love watching their linebackers, Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, run around. They're 2 of my favorite guys to watch play the game, as they just play with a reckless abandon that is just fun to watch. That said, I think the addition of Travarius Ward out there, Travarius Ward, is what has taken this defense to another level. Because remember, the thing that they couldn't do a season ago was they couldn't cover outside, and that's been a problem in San Francisco for a while now. Like there's been this revolving door. They would go out and get veterans as Band-Aids, whether it was Josh Norman or it was Dick Sherman. They've always had some veteran out there trying to, stop the bleeding at the cornerback position. They've gone through a list of guys, and they really haven't been able to find anyone to really hold it down. There was this brief little period in time where they were getting some really good football out of the kid Jason Verrett, right? But he can never stay healthy. And then obviously Father Time caught up with him too. But the health thing was his biggest issue. He could never stay healthy. That was the problem, that he didn't work in San Diego, Los Angeles with the Chargers. And so they just had an issue out there. They had rookies out there last year and young guys, and they were getting cooked. And that was the thing that would hurt them from a defensive standpoint. So now you add in a competent corner out there in Travarius Ward, and all of a sudden now there's really no real weakness on this football team. They've always had good quality safety play. They've always had strong linebacker play. The defensive line is headed by Nick Bosa. They've always gotten good play out of their D-line. The cornerback position was always the biggest question mark. They've also found some money there with Lenore in the slot now. Remember, he was a guy that they didn't really know what to do with outside and moving him around. Now they figured out where he is best inside as a slot player, and now he's making plays. So they've shored up the one area of this defense that was problematic, and now they're a tough defense to deal with, because the beauty of what they are able to provide. You saw how they were rushing as one up front. They don't have to blitz a lot. They actually blitz more, and they chronicled that throughout the night. They blitz more than they normally do. They usually don't have to blitz up front, but they switched up the game plan a little bit, came after Matthew Stafford, and he did not handle it well. Normally, this Rams football team is a great screen team, so you really don't want to blitz them because they have no issues throwing a screen behind your pressure. But as you saw, they went to the well one too many times. Talanoa Hufunga was all over it. He picks it off and pretty much ends the night. So this defense was all over it tonight. And most importantly, and I talk about this every single week when we go through the games, when we go slate skating on the podcast, I talk about this every week, every single week. The biggest stat in the NFL outside of the turnover battle is red zone efficiency. The team that goes into the red zone and goes 3 for 3 while the opposition goes 1 for 4, that's the team that usually wins the game, that goes 3 for 3. You know, a team can dominate the football game, have over 150 to 200 more yards of total offense, can dominate time of possession, like the Seahawks did in week 1 or like the Broncos did rather versus the Seahawks in week 1. And all you got to do is go to that one stat: red zone efficiency. And if that thing is slanted, you get in there 4 times and you only score once, that's usually a recipe for disaster. And that's what happened tonight. The Rams got into the red zone 3 times. I think maybe even made it a 4th time with that Stafford fumble. I don't think they actually got inside the 20 there, but they got into the red zone 3 times and came away with 9 points. No touchdowns, 3 field goals. That's how you lose the football game. It's really simple. You know, I don't know if the 49ers made it into the red zone other than the one time when they got down to the 2-yard line and ultimately decided, which was the right decision, to kick the field goal, because the way your defense is playing, you don't need to go for it on 4th down and have, because anything can happen. One bad play, you know, a guy slips, Cooper Kupp gets one-on-one, and all of a sudden it's a house call. And you just, because you felt like your defense was playing impeccable defense, they're not going to give up a touchdown, so 5 points should be enough. No. Make it so that you can't lose this game in any way, shape, or form. You know, they can't go for 2 and beat you or any of that. They have to go for 2 just to tie. It was the right decision. And as you saw, it ultimately worked out for them. But that they got in there one time and they didn't score either. But the Rams got there 3 times. And here's the difference. When the 49ers scored, they scored touchdowns. They were able to get in. Even the Deebo Samuel play obviously was the lone touchdown offensively for them tonight. Was it? No, and then they had the run by Jeff Wilson on the first possession. So both of their touchdowns came outside of the red zone, but they scored touchdowns. That's the biggest thing, whereas the Rams couldn't find the end zone. And again, you got to credit that 49ers defense for buckling down. I thought Stafford had an opportunity underneath on that play where he should have been picked off by the safety and threw it behind Higbee. He had a wide open Henderson underneath. He would have walked in because the linebacker was a little bit late. He was trailing on the play, and he wasn't going to be able to get over there in time. Henderson would have walked in the end zone had he gotten him the football, but he chose to throw it to Higbee, and it should have been picked off. They were lucky to come away with 3 on that particular possession. So the Rams were just out of sync offensively, but that's what these 49ers do to them when they play each other. They're, like I said, it's unlike anything I've ever seen in terms of family business. There's always, you know, craziness in family business. Like the Colts haven't won in Jacksonville, and they lost already in Jacksonville this year. So the streak continues since like 2014. And there's just little idiosyncrasies and quirks with these family business matchups that if you're not, you know, keen to it, you don't understand. This is just sheer dominance by the 49ers, dominating an offense that they know all too well. They've seen it. They've played against it enough. And it's really looking into a mirror, essentially, because, you know, they all kind of come from that same tree. So Shanahan's very familiar with a lot of the concepts and things that Sean McVay is trying to do. And then they've played against each other enough times. So they're very familiar with, you know, what they expect the Rams to give them in terms of looks. They take advantage of it, and that's why they're 7-0 in the last 7 matchups in the regular season, 7 of 8 the last time these two teams have locked horns, including the postseason. So another dominant performance by the 49ers. Offensively, there's really not a lot there, honestly speaking, with this 49ers team. It's Deebo Samuel, it's the run game. I still don't feel like they've featured George Kittle enough. He almost had a touchdown catch, didn't get the second foot down, but there's not a lot here. You know, when Ayuk gets involved, that's always a good thing. Early in the game, Jennings was getting featured, but there's not a lot here to this 49ers offense. And ultimately, I think that's going to be their undoing, is they just don't have enough pop offensively. Similar to the Rams. I mean, I look at the Rams, but they are – I've never seen a team and we'll touch on this a little bit later, but I've never seen a team talk about a guy so much that isn't actually on their roster. Like, this shit is insane to me. It's incredible how much we hear about Odell Beckham Jr. and they talk as if this guy's just on the PUP list right now, mending from an injury, and he's under contract, and he'll be back around week 10 or 11. Like, this dude's not even on your team. He may decide to go sign elsewhere when it's all said and done. Like, there, and the likelihood is he'll be back in LA to play with the Rams. That's the likelihood. But the fact that they still have his locker there, we've heard about him being at Sean McVay's wedding and how Sean was fawning over him then, like, hey, you gotta come back to LA. Now I'm hearing that he's got a locker that his locker that was there last year, they haven't taken it down. They've left it there for him. I mean, it's insane just how much they are trying to recruit him back to LA. But when you watch them play on the field, you see why they're trying to get him back there. Allen Robinson might as well not even be on the roster right now. He is invisible. They're treating Allen Robinson like he's Tutu Atwell or something. He might as well be, because he's not getting any looks. They're not even giving him an opportunity. I wonder, and I'm not watching the all-22s for the Rams, so I can't tell you what is going on. But whether he's not getting open or what, I know there's been times where they've thrown him the football, he didn't catch it. There's been times where he got open, like tonight on that third down, where he's open and Stafford puts it out just a slightly bit in front of him, and he has to dive to catch it. But whatever the case may be, they're just not going to him. They're not looking for him. They're not checking for him. And it's Cooper Kupp had 19 targets tonight and 14 catches, a career high. Like, it's getting out of control now. Like, after week 1, where he was a non-factor against Buffalo and they got the doors blown off of him 31-10, we all said, look, they got to get Allen Robinson involved. This is not going to work. And week 2, they made a concerted effort to get Allen Robinson more involved. And you said, okay, that's more like it. Then week 3, he went back to not really being that involved again. And now we're in week 4. And again, what did he have? 2 targets tonight? If that, 1 catch? Like, this is getting out of hand now. They didn't bring him here to just be eye candy and to be a distraction so that Cooper Kupp could get all the targets. And it was Tyler Higbee and Cooper Kupp tonight. And if it wasn't one of those 2 guys, it really wasn't anybody else. Ben Skoranek might have gotten a couple of passes his way, but they got to figure that shit out. That's unhealthy, okay? Because, again, I get it. Cooper Kupp's a stud, and he's probably well on his way to leading the league and receiving again. But, again, other teams know that this guy is the only player that you have, and they're going to try to take him away. And so they've got to be better. But I always, as a Washington fan, I always just look at Cooper Kupp and players like him and Deebo Samuel, guys that other teams know this guy's a huge chunk of what they do offensively. Like, if you take this guy away, they got nothing. And yet Cooper Kupp gets 19 targets and 14 catches. Don't talk to me about not being able to get a guy the football ever. I don't want to hear the shit. Because it doesn't, it's impossible. If you want to get a guy the football, you can. Period. End of discussion. But the 49ers, to me, offensively, there's not a lot there. And I've already said this. Kyle Shanahan is one of the best in the business as an offensive mind. And that's why he can get away with not having a ton of offensive weaponry and talent and, all of the things that we see a lot of these flashy offenses in the league have, like Cincinnati and teams that are, go 3 deep at receiver and have all these explosive plays and dynamic playmakers. They don't have to have that in San Francisco because Kyle Shanahan has a very simplistic offense. You run it left, outside zone, stretch, get the defense running, play action fake off of that, drift route over the middle of the football field. Opportunities come down the field, you take it, you get the fullback involved. A lot of teams don't even have a fullback, so teams aren't used to covering them out of the backfield. We saw Kyle Juszczyk run a simple out route in the Rams blow coverage. And 35, 40 yards later, he's down the sidelines and into Rams territory. Like, teams it's almost like they lose their minds when fullbacks get opportunities because you just don't see it very often. And so Kyle, figures it out, does just enough. Now that he's got a defense that he can rely on this. It's starting to feel like 2019 all over again from a defensive standpoint. That offense in 2019, however, was better than what they've got right now. And so they've got to figure some stuff out. That was Deebo Samuel as a rookie. That was Eman Sand. That was George Kittle at his height. That was a mean run game with like a three-headed monster, Mostert, all of those guys. They got to figure it out, though, because you can't score 10 like you did last week against the Broncos and then score 24, but really it was 17 tonight without the pick six, and think that's going to be enough. Now, with the way your defense is playing and what you're giving up on a weekly basis, it could be enough, but let's keep it a buck. Most weeks, 10 points is definitely not going to be enough. It was almost enough last week, but it wasn't. And 17 isn't going to be enough most weeks. You're going to have to score some points. So they're going to have to be better, but as long as his defense is playing the way that it played tonight, they're going to win some football games. We know the 49ers are going to be there when it's all said and done. They're going to be around. Even if they don't win this division, they're going to be around, and they're going to be in the wild card chase, and they're going to be around because of that defense. No matter what, no matter if anything happens to Jimmy at quarterback, they're going to find a way defensively. As long as they're not turning the football over, they're going to be in a lot of football games. As long as the defense can stay relatively healthy. They've had a number of injuries offensively already. Got to stay healthy on defense, though, because that's what's going to carry this team this season. So the Rams, wow, where do I begin with this team? Defensively, I've talked about this already. They're not the same team defensively. They miss Von Miller, but it's not just Von Miller. There's just something off with this defense, and I can't quite put my finger on it. Like, yeah, Von Miller, we keep in mind, Von Miller came at the midpoint of the season. They traded for Von Miller. It's not like Von Miller was there all year last year. That said, did they sack Jimmy Garoppolo at all tonight? If they did, it was once, but I don't think they did. They almost got him one time, and he got away. This isn't like a normal Rams defensive unit for me. I think they're missing something. I can't quite put my finger on what exactly it is. Obviously, the low-hanging fruit is they're missing Von Miller. But again, even before Von Miller got there, remember Brandon Staley was there a couple of years ago. They had the number one defense in football. Von Miller wasn't there for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're missing something up front. And I can't quite put my finger in. Maybe it's just that second pass rusher, right? Because at one point it was Dante Fowler Jr. and, Gumby is still there, but he's not really making any noise. Leonard Floyd, that's who Gumby is for me. And so maybe they just need another dude, and they just don't have him. That's the only thing I could think of. But the secondary isn't really making that many plays, and so they don't seem to tackle as well. Like tonight was a piss poor production defensively in terms of tackling. That's how Deebo Samuel got in the end zone. I thought they played the screen game. They acted as if they didn't know that the 49ers run screens, specifically on 3rd and long. And they gave up the screen to Deebo Samuel on a critical 3rd down when they needed to get off the field. Now, ultimately, they missed that field goal on that possession when it was 17-9. But that killed more clock. It put them in a tough spot. They gave up another screen to Brandon Ayuk. Now, that one didn't go for a 1st down, but it got them closer. They got popped with screens consistently tonight. Did nothing about it. They gave up the big run to Jeff Wilson on the first possession for a touchdown. Didn't have their run fits there properly. Obviously, the Deebo Samuel play is nasty. I do like Kendrick at corner, though. And I remember talking to somebody. I don't remember who it was, but they said, I really like Darion Kendrick from Georgia. And he went to Clemson, had some issues off the field, transferred to Georgia, was a part of that national championship team. And he ran a slow 40, kind of just fell down draft boards. And I think it was that coupled with the fact that he had the off the field stuff that people dug into his background with. And I really liked that kid too. And I was shocked that he lasted as long as he did. And he's got some dog in him, and you saw it tonight. Like Troy Aikman said, if that ball that Jimmy Garoppolo threw to Debo. And I don't know if he did that purposefully. Maybe that thing just sailed on him a bit. If he throws that thing, eye level, instead of Debo having to climb the ladder and go get it, if he throws that thing eye level, it's a pick. Not necessarily a pick six. It's a pick, though. He's all over that thing. So, and he jumped another route right before half, but, it ended up being incomplete. He was all over it. So, I like that kid, but they're missing some things on defense. It doesn't seem like they're in sync there. All right. But then you go to the offense. Obviously, I've already chronicled, some of the issues. No Van Jefferson, no Odell Beckham Jr. There's no second option right now at receiver, which is crazy because this is the whole purpose of them going and getting Allen Robinson. I mean, if you were going to do this, you might as well have held on to Robert Woods, because at least Robert Woods, you knew exactly what you were getting. He was all in on the philosophy of Sean McVay, and he fit in like hand in glove in that offense. So trading away Robert Woods right now doesn't seem like a smart move if you were trading him off for Allen Robinson, because you're getting absolutely nothing from Allen Robinson. The run game has been spotty at best for the Rams. They did get a big afternoon from Henderson last week against Arizona, but outside of that, their run game has been non-existent. It was non-existent again tonight. So you're putting all of the pressure on Matthew Stafford to have to carry this team. He's still banged up too. He's not 100% himself. Remember, had the shoulder injury all camp long, made it back for week 1. Now he's hobbling around. He was hobbling around most of the night tonight. Took a beating tonight too. Even the ones on which he didn't get sacked, but just got hit. He got his ass whooped. That offensive line is in shambles. They're another one of their guys who was already a backup. So the backup to the backup to the backup was in there tonight. A practice squad guy that they just pulled up in a rookie out of San Diego State was in there tonight. Or San Jose State. It's getting rough on the offensive line, to say the least. Only the tackles are the guys that started week 1 and were projected starters. So they've got issues up front. Clearly that's impacting Matthew Stafford, but he's not making the best decisions. I said this last year. I'm saying it again. Winning masks everything, and they won the Super Bowl. He had a tremendous year from a touchdown standpoint, yardage, all of that good stuff, but he threw 17 picks, and he's throwing picks again this season. And the biggest difference is they're 2-2 instead of 3-1 or 6-2. They're hovering right around 500. And so he's got to get better. They've got to find a way to spread the rock around, man. They got to do a better job of acclimating Allen Robinson and getting him targets and getting him the football. They're treating him like he's a Jag. They're treating Allen Robinson like he's a Jag. And if that's the case, then you might as well move on from him, and just put a rando out there, because Allen Robinson has been a non-factor for the Rams, and I'm shocked. I thought McVay would get the most out of him. And look, Allen Robinson was never a burner, and he's getting older, so he's probably lost a little bit of a step, but he's still a guy that can separate. He's still got strong hands. There's a lot that comes with the Allen Robinson package. They got to figure it out, because now you're a month into the season, and you're starting to lose the excuse of, still trying to figure out that continuity and where he fits in the offense. Now you've had him for a month during the season. You've had him all off season. You got to get this thing in gear. So they're just off to me, are the Rams. And maybe they get Odell Beckham Jr. back week 10, 11, somewhere in there. They hit their stride, and they just tread water until they get him back. And then Van Jefferson comes back, and all of a sudden this offense is dynamic again. And we forget we even had these discussions. But right now, it's the Cooper Kupp show, starring Cooper Kupp, also featuring Tyler Higbee. And that's not good enough. You'll be able to beat some of the lesser teams in the league with that combination, but anybody with a half of a defense, like Buffalo, like this 49ers team, like the Cowboys team you're going to see next week, you're going to struggle. Now, you'll beat Carolina the following week after that, but then you run into these same 49ers again. You're going to struggle again if you haven't figured out a way to take some of the pressure off of not only Matthew Stafford, but Cooper Kupp as well. So that was fun to watch from a 49er standpoint, just watching them fly around, make a bunch of plays. That was really interesting, to say the least. Let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. So we start with my guy, John Perez. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JP, writes, such an ass-tastic game. Turned it off in the third quarter and turned Lakers preseason basketball on. LOL. I actually enjoyed this game. There's something about, and honestly, this is what the NFL has been this year. Like, a lot of people, it's funny because I know fans prefer offense, which is why the NFL has geared the rules towards offense. So I shouldn't be surprised, but yet I still find myself shocked at how many fans don't like watching defensive football games. And I heard so many people talk about how bad the 49ers game was last weekend against the Denver Broncos. And look, Denver Broncos games have been terrible this year. So I'll grant you that. They have not been fun watches, but I enjoyed the Monday night game, even though I lost in my survivor pool. I enjoyed that game against Seattle in week 1. I enjoyed the Cowboys game last Monday night. I enjoyed this game tonight. I enjoyed the Sunday night game in terms of the competitive nature of it. And I enjoy defense. I don't mind watching a 17-13 game as long as it's good defense and not terrible offense. And that's not what it was tonight. The Rams had drives tonight that spanned 7-8 minutes of the clock. Their problem was this was a fast-moving game too. Like, this game was over at like 11 o'clock. Think about that in the context of an NFL game. This game started at around 8:20, and it was done by 11 o'clock. You're talking about a 2-hour and 40-minute NFL game. There weren't a lot of penalties. There weren't a lot of stoppages. We had the one idiot fan that ran on the field, and Bobby Wagner lit him up. And you saw how bad Wagner lit him up. You saw that divot that left on the field. Like, there was a big mark right around the 30, 40-yard line on the 49ers side of the field in the second half as you got into Rams territory, rather. That was there, and it is like they never tried to patch it up or maybe put some. It was just there, right? Luckily, they were able to really avoid that one area of the field, but there really weren't many stoppages tonight. Wasn't a lot of penalties called. I love when the officials just stay the hell out of the way and let the players decide the outcome of the game on the field. Unfortunately, every staff isn't that way, and so you didn't have penalties. You had the Rams completing a bunch of passes and running the football, so the clock just kept running. Same thing with the 49ers. And before you know it, you look up, it's 9:54 and we're into the, it's not 9:54. It's 10:24 and we're heading to the fourth quarter. Like, it was wild, like how fast this game was going. But yeah, a lot of people have complained about some of these games. I actually enjoyed this game thoroughly. But I did get in a little bit of Grizzlies preseason ball tonight. And, basketball's right around the corner. So, that's going to start revving up here. And so I don't blame you for, going to some preseason ball, but this wasn't a boring game to me. But again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So Silver V, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy, Silver V. Writes, and thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, kudos to my guy, Louie T. Week 1, you mentioned Hufunga in your slime gang breakdown, so I picked him up on my fantasy team, and he's been a beast for me. I told you guys, man, Talanoa Hufunga, remember the name. I've been talking about this kid since week 1. I said, look, I'm telling you, I know it when I see it. This dude has superstar written all over him. Now, it was one game. It was a slop fest in Chicago, but I'm like, this guy was all over the football field. Like, you couldn't go 3 plays without this dude flying on your screen and making a play, tackle for loss, interception, sack. It was a beautiful performance. And I'm like, okay, you're on my radar. And then I watched the next week, and when a guy jumps on my radar, now I'm going out of my way to search this guy out and see what he's doing. And I don't have to search far. I don't have to search wide. This guy's jumping out at me every single week. He did it again. And so Talanoa Hufunga, he's going to become a household name. And this is how you do it. When the stage is its biggest, the lights are its brightest, this is when you step up and show everybody what you're made of. He did it again tonight. And it's not going to be long before people know who he is. You always get the Troy Polamalu, references when you see a guy that is, Samoan, and you see the long hair. He went to USC, plays the safety position. He worked out with him this offseason. There's just so many similarities there, but this guy is definitely a ball player. That is for sure. Glad I was able to help you a little bit out there as well. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Vincent Coe, writes, Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor will always be my favorite safeties, but Hufunga won me over. Talanoa, who? Hufunga. I'm going to tell you what, man. And that's a lot of respect coming from you because you're a Seattle Seahawks fan. So game recognized game. And you're looking over at this dude and you're saying, damn, he's looking so familiar right now because, look, one thing I can appreciate is just a dude that's really good at his job and his craft. And when you look at Talanoa Hufunga, the light has come on for him, And I remember watching him a couple of years ago coming into the league out of USC and thinking, this guy's got a lot of talent, but he's raw. And he's obviously him working out with Troy Polamalu has done wonders for him because he's always been a high energy guy that's flied around the football field. That's always been a part of the Talanoa Hufunga package. That's in his DNA. He's just going to play like his hair's on fire, right? But it's about being smart. Like that pick six, there aren't many players in the league making that play, especially at the safety position. You might get a nosy, greedy corner that's hungry looking to make a play that goes up and does something like that. But it's rare to see a safety read the guy in front of him going to make a block and says, I've seen this already. I'm just going to jump it. Now, if you're the Rams, you've thrown the wide receiver screen 18 times already because that's a staple of the Sean McVay offense. You're going to throw tight end screen, running back screen, wide receiver screen. He screens you to death. At some point, you fake that with the guy in the slot and you just take him up the field on a rail route. And had he done that, Hufunga would have been hook, line, and sinker gotten because he'd already committed to, all right, this dude's going to block. I know this is going to be a wide receiver screen. I'm just going to jump this thing and see what happens. If that tight end had gone up the sideline instead of and acted as if he was going to block and went up the sideline, they would have had him. And I was waiting for McVay to do something like that off of the screens that they had run, and we never got it. But that's a hell of a play, man. Hell of a play. And the fact that you being a Seattle Seahawks fan, sworn enemy of the San Francisco 49ers, you're acknowledging this dude and how well he's played and that you like him as a football player speaks volumes. That's respect. Niners fan, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Niners fan writes, tough schedule down the stretch. Need W's at Carolina and Atlanta next if we are legit. If we get the Jimmy that's not terrible, we got a shot this year. I don't think Jimmy's going to be terrible. I think that Jimmy still exists, and he will come out to play once or twice this season. You just hope it's in games that you didn't expect to win anyway. But at the end of the day, this defense is so good that even if Jimmy doesn't bring his A game, Kyle will protect him with the run game. And this defense is so dominant, there's no way Carolina's going to beat you. Atlanta is a different case. But now that, and I don't know when you play Atlanta, but if they're up next, in the next couple of weeks, there's no Cordero Patterson. He's been put on IR. So if you're getting them in this next 4-week window when he's out, that's a godsend for you because that's a huge chunk of their offense. Now, they still got other playmakers like Kyle Pitts and Drake London and then Marcus Mariota's legs. And then they still got Zacchaeus Alameda, but they still got other guys. But Cordero Patterson is the engine that powers that offense. And if you're getting them in the next couple of weeks, that's going to be a big break for you. Your defense is going to dominate those teams, and you're going to win those football games. It's the teams that have high-powered offensives that can score, big numbers that should worry you. Those are the teams that – because I think the teams, the lesser teams, which you've seen a steady diet of them to start this season off. I mean, You played Denver. They're struggling to score. You played the Rams. That's family business. You throw that out the window. You played the Seahawks. They're not struggling to score, but that's family business again, and you destroyed them. And then you played the Bears. None of these are world beaters on offense, the teams that you've played to this point. So obviously, if you were to run into a team with some offensive firepower, I'd be interested to see if you continue to shut teams down, keep them out of the end zone, like you've done to start this season off. But I really don't see how you're not going to win at a bare minimum 9 games with the way this defense plays. That's at a bare minimum. I could easily see you winning 10, 11 games with how good your defense is, because there aren't going to be many teams. And you have to stay relatively healthy. Health is the name of the game, right? Can't have Dre Greenlaw or Fred Warner going down to injury. All these guys out, Al Shire and these linebackers that run sideline to sideline, hit anything that moves. The defensive line, Hassan Redway is a nice little addition there after losing DJ Jones and some of the guys that left. You're just bringing in more guys to come in here and play good ball for you. As long as you keep that train going and you keep these guys healthy, you're going to be just fine. And eventually you'll get a healthy Eric Armstead. Anytime I get a big man with a foot injury, I get nervous. You're telling me he's got a plantar fasciitis situation going on. That's scary, because that generally doesn't go away with a guy continuing to try to push. You just got to sit and let that thing rest. Only time's going to heal that. And that's always a big problem, because, again, it's a big man with a foot injury. But, between him and Javon Kinlaw, at some point you're going to get these guys back. I can't see how you don't win, 10 games, 9, 10, 11 games, somewhere in that window. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, Vincent Coe, writes, Pete Carroll should be fighting for his job, to be honest. He's too comfortable. Our defense is straight garbage. Your defense is not good. That is facts. Gave up 45 to the Lions, and the Lions are the highest scoring team in the league right now, but they're 1-3. So that goes to show you what the league has been this year. The league has really been defensive centric, this year to this point. I mean, defenses have ruled the day. I've never seen as many low scoring games this early in the season as I have. Normally when the season starts, the defense gets out to a little bit of a early start because they don't have to mesh and gel as much. Offense is usually behind the defense the first couple of weeks, and then we see the offenses catch up past the defenses, and now the defenses usually are holding on for dear life. Only in a few games this season, most of them including the Detroit Lions, but only in a few games we've seen like high scoring affairs. For the most part, 11-10, 14-12. What do you beat the Seahawks? 20, you think, what was it, 27-7? I think it was 20-7, something along those lines. You're getting a lot of those types of games where the score isn't very high and teams aren't making it. And weather has impacted some of these games too. We've had a lot of rain on the East Coast, but that doesn't change the fact that Bears and Giants, what was the score in that game yesterday? 20-15, something like that, 23-15. These are the kinds of games you're getting. I don't know what the score in the Carolina Arizona game was, but it wasn't very high scoring. It's a lot of these two teams in the teens. One team barely makes it to the 20s, and the other team still stuck in the teens. We're getting a lot of those types of football games. I think the Steelers game was 20-23 to 20, 24. I think it was 24-20. The Jets ultimately came back and beat. Like that's what we're getting a lot of. The high scoring affairs are the outliers. In Seattle gave up 45. Let's see, 45 this week. Last week you gave up 31 to Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken, something in that general vicinity. You gave up 20 or 27 to the 49ers in week 2. And then you had the game where the Broncos went up and down the field on you, but you shut it down in the red zone. So you got issues. Look, you were supposed to suck this year. You should be excited about being 2-2. I'm not. Geno Smith is playing out of his gourd. I'm going to talk about him tomorrow or Wednesday whenever I do the podcast. I've had so much fun watching Geno Smith, man. He's playing with so much confidence right now. It is insane. I'm so proud of Geno. I'm so happy for him. Your offense is fun actually right now. But it's the defense, as you mentioned. They just flat out suck. And you don't get enough pressure on the quarterback. That's really been a problem with your defense since the Legion of Boom days. Like once that NASCAR package with Michael Bennett and what was the guy from the Lions that y'all had on the outside? I can't remember his name, but all those fast guys up front, that NASCAR package. After that phase went away, you really haven't had any dominant pass rushers and guys that can just win and get to the quarterback. And so now that means you put extra emphasis on the secondary. And you got some young boys, but I do like the young fella. He had to pick 6 in the game. What is his name? The big, tall ass, fast corner y'all drafted this year. I don't know why I forgot his damn name, but he's good. He looks good. That was a nice play. He showed that speed, that burst, picked that shit off, took it the other way. He's gonna be a problem. Now, I think the other guy on the other side, he's long. He's, the Seahawks love big, tall, long corners. Pause. Michael Jackson. But I don't know about him. Jury's still out on him. He's gonna be the other corner that you have. He's going to be your Dick Sherman, right? He's going to be the star of the group. And remember, there was a revolving door on the opposite side of Dick Sherman during your Legion of Boom days, whether it started out with Brandon Browner, then it was Byron Maxwell, and then whomever was just on the other side was on the other side, right? Those are the two big ones, though. And then they ultimately both left for free agency, if I'm not mistaken, and got paid elsewhere. That Michael Jackson fella is going to be the Byron Maxwell / Brandon Browner to the rookie, the big 6'4", fast as a sumbitch corner that used to be a receiver. That young fella can play, but again, it's a lot going on there. It's a lot going on with that defense, that's for sure. And Pete's not going anywhere. Once Pete won the tuggle of war with Russell Wilson, that should have told you all you needed to know about his job. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Vincent Coe writes, Geno is low-key balling for us, I'm not going to lie. There ain't no low-key about it. Geno is effing balling. And to your point, if the defense wasn't trash and god-awful, you'd probably 3-1 right now because you lost to Atlanta at home. Right? Like the Falcons came in there and they could do no wrong on offense because your defense couldn't get stops. So Geno's balling right now. Ain't no doubt about it. I mean, he went to Detroit and destroyed them. He filleted those boys. And you know what else the Seahawks are ultimately going to be proven right on? And we killed them. And I killed them. I'm not going to lump anybody else in with my foolishness. I killed them, and I'm ultimately going to have to offer up a 0-0 to John Schneider and Pete Carroll because I always kill them for their first-round selections, and they seem to be getting them right, of late. Rashad Penny looks like a winner. I remember when you spent the first-round pick on him, I dogged him, and I've been dogging him for years for that selection. He couldn't stay healthy. He's this, he's that. Rashad Penny at the end of last year was starting to morph into a dominant NFL running back. And I said, it's the end of that season. They suck. No one was worried about him. We'll see if he can do it with a fresh slate next year. He's picked right up where he left off last season. He is a problem. He's big. He's physical. He runs through contact, has excellent contact balance. That was one of the things I liked about him coming out of San Diego State. And now he's starting to look like the first-round pick that the Seahawks made him, 3-4 years ago. So they're going to ultimately be proven right there. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. as well. Malachi Malik, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, we drafted Derek Forrest 13 spots ahead of Hufunga. Not sure how I feel about that one, Lou. A brother can dream, right? LOL. Look, this is the thing. I try not to fawn over other people's stuff, especially when it comes to the draft and what we could have had, because I think about like situations like we drafted, Jamison Crowder a round before we took Stephon Diggs, which we're not alone in that, but we needed a receiver. And the guy was in our backyard. He went to Maryland. Here's this stud sitting right here to be selected, and we didn't take him. He ends up going to Minnesota, and look at what he's turned into. I just think about, if he'd have gone to Washington, would he have turned into Stephon Diggs? Probably not. Now, we had Kirk Cousins in those days. Maybe he would have. But the likelihood is he's not Stephon Diggs if he ended up in Washington. He's just Stephon Diggs, right? He's not Stephon Diggs. He's just Stephon Diggs. And I'm looking at, Talanoa Hufunga, and I'm like, if he goes to Washington, he's probably just Talanoa Hufunga. He's not Talanoa Hufunga. He's probably just Talanoa Hufunga. So, again, we could sit here and talk about opportunities missed with guys in the draft, this, that, and the third, but these guys are probably better off elsewhere, because if you come to Washington, he's not going to get the kind of coaching he's gotten in San Francisco. He's not going to be with a defensive coordinator like DeMeco Ryans, right? He's not going to be exposed to the things that he's been exposed to if he goes to Washington. So, yeah, it's fun to look at other guys and like, damn, why can't we do that? Because we're Washington. That's why. Abel Ambrosio, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, what Rams was missing was Sebastian Joseph Day. Where is he now? I just saw him. I was watching a game and he made a play, and trying to remember what game I was watching. Was it last night? It wasn't either one of those. It wasn't the Bucks or the Chiefs. It must have been a game I was watching today. Just can't remember what game it was I was watching today. But yeah, he's no longer in LA with the Rams, and he played really well for them. But I can't buy that it's just Sebastian Joseph Day. It's got to be more than just that. But he was a big part of what they were doing. He played really well for them. And I remember I would talk about him all the time last year about, man, this guy is emerging. Man, he's playing so well. He's flashing. I mean, I'm not discounting that they miss him, but I don't think, it's just that he's missing. That is why the defense isn't playing better. But that doesn't help. But you can't keep everybody in this league. And the Rams you've seen what they've done. They spent a lot of money on elite football players. Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp. A lot of their money, Matthew Stafford, a lot of their money is tied up into superstar players. And then they just fill in the gaps with guys in the draft. And again, they don't spend first and second round draft capital. It's usually third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round guys, that they're filling out the rest of the roster with, because they don't have a lot of money, because they're spending that money on elite caliber players. So they couldn't keep Sebastian Joseph Day. And yeah, I think it is hurting them a little bit, but not enough for me to feel like, oh my God, that's why the defense isn't good. But I think they do miss him. I think you're onto something there. Red Wings 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, genuine question, has Allen Robinson done anything in terms of what this year with the Rams? If that's what you're asking, the answer is no. He has done absolutely nothing. They did try to feature him in week 2. There was the overreaction that happens after the week 1 loss. It's on a Thursday. You got 11 days before the next game that you play. And so they had time to kind of conjure up a game plan that got him involved early and often. And they made it, their business to get him some opportunities. Last week, they tried to throw him a slant down by the end zone, and it went right through his hands, and he would have scored had he caught it. And so he hasn't been great, but they haven't done enough to get him acclimated to this offense and integrated. They haven't done enough to say, hey, we're embracing you. You're a huge part of what we want to do offensively, and we're going to make sure, they make sure they get Cooper Kupp the rock. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Cooper Kupp's going to get his 11 targets every single game. They could do the same for Allen Robinson, where they say, hey, Allen Robinson's going to get his 5 to 7 targets every game. He's not getting that. They're not even looking his way. He's like a decoy out on the football field. Curtilius Holmes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, do you believe Trevon Diggs is an elite cornerback? I don't think he's an elite cornerback yet. I think he has elite cornerback traits and skills. Remember, this guy was a wide receiver that converted to corner maybe his second year at Alabama. So he's still learning the position. And here's the thing I like about Trevon Diggs is that he's extremely aggressive and he's attacking the football. And you don't get to make mistakes in his vicinity. That's why you have to be extra careful. But in that same breath, because he's so aggressive, you can use that aggressiveness against him. And that's always going to be a problem for him, because this was a problem for him in college. He was over aggressive. But in the NFL, he's been able to get away with it because his over aggressiveness a lot of times has led to him making plays on the football. But it's also gotten him beat, which is why I don't think he's an elite corner, because as an elite corner, not only is it your job to erase the other receiver that you're guarding, that guy or a side of the field, but it's your job to limit the amount of targets that even come your direction. Teams aren't afraid to throw at him because they feel like they can take advantage of him. That's not the definition of an elite corner. Now, you can make plays on the football, but if you're an elite corner, quarterbacks tend to stay away from you. They're going to pick their spots, because you can't just not throw at a guy because you just assume he's going to make a play. You got to test him every now and again. But the true mark of an elite corner is you're not really going over there. You much rather just fool with whatever's on the opposite side. And trust me, the Cowboys have a very vulnerable corner in Anthony Brown on the opposite side. If he was that much of a problem, you just go after Anthony Brown. You wouldn't even try Trevon Diggs. Why even try? Just attack the other guy. He's not any good. But you don't have to do that yet. I do think, though, given more time, he continues to develop and he gets smarter as a corner and becomes more savvy at the position. I do think he could be an elite corner. He has elite traits. So he's actually really interesting to see. Red Wings 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Red Wings 01 writes, Tariq Woolen was the Seattle cornerback you were thinking of. Yes, that is his name. Tariq Woolen had a beautiful pick 6 against Detroit. And is that where Kobe Bryant is too? I'm trying to think. I saw, and I thought he made a play. Yeah, I think he had a punch out against Detroit. Was it? Well, I could be mixing up games. I watched so many games today. But the kid that was at Cincinnati opposite of Sauce Gardner was this cornerback named Kobe Bryant. And he made a play in the game I watched today. I really want to say he's in Seattle too, but I could be wrong. But he punched the football out. And again, every time I see that, I just get jealous. I get upset because our guys don't do it. And here is a rookie that just got here. He's green. He's wet behind the ears. His breath smells like Similac, and he's out here making plays like a 7-year veteran. It just frustrates me. Anyway. Red Wings 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Red Wings 01 writes, should we give Tariq Castro Fields a look outside? Honestly speaking, they're not going to do that right now. And it probably, again, the cornerback position isn't a position where you just want to start giving guys an opportunity randomly. Like, you got to see it in practice. This has to be something that you feel comfortable doing. Um, if so, with Will Jack, like, he got himself in trouble. He really, other than the post corner post that CeeDee Lamb ran that he just didn't respond to as if that wasn't his man. Other than that play, he was in position. He just got himself in trouble, just not trusting his technique. He panicked. A lot of times when guys with talent get themselves in trouble is when they panic. Like, dude, you're in great position. You don't need to panic. Just just locate the football. And if you're scared to look back, which a lot of corners are, fine, play the receiver's hands. Just wait till he goes to attack the football and you attack him. But he panicked. He grabbed the back of his jersey, horse collared him one time to keep him from running away from him. Like, dude, he's not, you're a 4-3 dude. He's not running away from you. He's not going anywhere. Just keep running, dude. And he just panicked. And that's what he does. He panics. So if that continues, what do you have to lose? He's giving up big plays. What do you got to lose? Like, find out what you have. But again, those types of conversations don't occur in week 4 or 5. That's a conversation for weeks 13, 14, 15 as you get to the back end of the season and you suck, which I don't think we're going to be in that position because, again, worst case scenario, you look up, it's week 15. We're coming off of a bye week in week 14. We're heading into week 15. And you look up and Washington is coming off the bye at 6-8. And that's still good enough to be in the hunt. You're not benching starters to see what young guys can do when you're still in the hunt and you're only out of the playoff race by a game. You're just not going to do that. So in my mind, you're not going to get to see these guys until next year, more likely than not. He'll be inactive most weeks. Now, again, you have enough injuries, anything can happen, all bets are off. But hell, we can't even get them to put Juice outside, which is where he belongs. So the likelihood that they take and look, I mean, what are you going to do? They put Juice outside, they stick Kendall Fuller inside, and the Cowboys still find him and go with a deep over route to Noah Brown, and he cooks him. So, I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? All right. Let's see. We got about 10 minutes roughly. We take some hashtags. See what we got. Niners fan writes, love what Charvarius Ward has brought to our defense. He's been awesome. A guy who we can trust at times in one-on-one situations. I talked about him already. Charvarius Ward has been a godsend for the 49ers. That's been the one position that they've had that has been a revolving door. I've talked about the veterans that they've brought in that haven't been getting it done over the years, that were on their last legs. To find a guy like Charvarius Ward, prime of his career, from Kansas City, has played in meaningful football games, has been tested, battle tested. And you saw the play he made tonight. Perfect position. Allen Robinson is about to go up and moss on him, and he locates that football, sticks his hand in there, and knocks that shit away. Like, get that shit out of here. Like, and that's not the first time. We've seen him do this repeatedly this season. So he's up to the task. I like this guy, man. I like him a lot. And he's playing well for the 49ers. Niners fan also writes, he says, shout out to Big Huff. He's becoming a superstar for us and a big-time playmaker. He struggled in coverage last year, but he's finally putting it together. Boy, is he ever. Okay, boy, is he ever. When he came out of USC, the one thing we knew he could do was he could hit. He could run and he could hit. Now he's making plays on the football. Now he's being a lot better. As Niners fans said, he's a lot more sound in coverage, and his understanding of what teams are trying to do that play tonight is a great example of that. That's a prime example of a guy understanding what the defense is trying to do to him and reacting to what he sees in front of him and going and making a play. Don't wait. That's the thing that frustrates me a lot with Washington players is they wait for a play to come to them. Like, for instance, Dre Greenlaw on that toss. There was a running toss to Henderson out of the backfield as they were approaching the red zone. And Dre Greenlaw sees it, and he sprints out there, makes a tackle for loss, like a 3-yard tackle for loss. And if he would have hesitated a second longer, that center would have came off the double team, and he would have got to the second level, and he would have got to Dre Greenlaw, and there's no Dre Greenlaw tackle for loss. So instead, it's probably like a 7-yard gain because there was space and opportunity out there. But Dre Greenlaw saw it, and he shot his gun. I'm not going to sit here and wait to get blocked. Our guys seem to just hesitate, just that one split second that it takes for that guard to get a piece of you, and now you're not making that play. So it's all about just guys seeing it, reading it, and going and making plays. And you see it all around that defense. And Talanoa Hufunga is another one of those dudes that just flies around, makes plays. HTTR Carson writes, why can't we have nice things, Lou? Karma won't allow it. Karma won't allow it. It's as simple as that. We're not supposed to have nice things because we don't have a nice owner. He's not a nice human being. And eventually that has to catch up with you. And it's been, kicking our ass for the last 30 years, pretty much. Well, last 20 years, which is what Snyder's been here for, roughly a little bit over 20 years. Let's see. Niners fan writes, we need Armstead and Kinlaw healthy. That interior pressure makes us almost unblockable up front. Indeed. And just imagine what would happen if you get those guys back healthy. I mean, the stunts that they were running tonight, you got Nick Bosa looping around and being untouched. They ran some cute blitzes up front tonight. Some great action. That's a fun defense to watch, as I mentioned. And it's well coached, well designed, well coached. And that's fun to watch. Let's see. Jonathan Riches writes, Jimmy G being 7-0 against the Rams in the regular season will be an all-time bar trivia stat. I mean, it's insane, right? Like, who would have guessed Jimmy G would be 7-0 against Sean McVay in the Los Angeles Rams? You never would anticipate that. If you weren't paying attention, if you didn't know any better, that's not what you would think would be the answer. But that's definitely, it's amazing. And again, you got to give a lot of credit to the defenses that has helped him get to that 7-0. It hasn't been like Jimmy G's out here out dueling, Sean McVay's offense and scoring a bunch of points. But he's made his fair share of plays. Let's see if there are any more comments. Craig, why you ain't tell me you had a YouTube channel, man? I actually fell asleep on your channel the other night. I watched like 7 videos on your channel. I did not know you had a channel. And I meant to leave you a comment in the comment section. I was watching your video last week when you were talking about Brandon Staley and, the lack of the run game and, after the Jacksonville game. But anyway, I digress. That's some good shit you over there doing, man. Like, I need to know this. Like, why don't I know this? Like, why don't we know this? Anyway, he says, where all that F them picks merch at, Lou? I'm gonna tell you what, man. I've been struggling, man. I've been struggling in the pick department, man. I got this one wrong, and this is my problem. I'm too damn smart for my own good. I knew the 49ers have owned them, and I said it on the podcast. Like, I gotta be better, man. I have not been sharp with my selections. I knew Tennessee could go into Indianapolis and win. Long story short, he says I'm in transition with a lot of things. Merch is one of them as well. But I mean, there's a lot of things I could have t-shirts of that I probably should have t-shirts of that are sayings and things of that nature. But in any event, man, I'm all over the place. I gotta kind of condense all of that stuff and narrow the focus, make a selection, and ride with it and see what happens when it comes to merch in that regard. Anyway, good to hear from you though, man. And I like what you're doing over there on your channel. Anyway, Vincent Coe writes, who is this Josh Jones dude that plays safety for us? Please get him out of here. That's the guy that was drafted by the Green Bay Packers out of NC State. They overdrafted him. I didn't like him coming out of NC State. Really, height, weight, speed specimen. Dude could run. He was tall, X wide receiver type out of NC State. Packers found out very quickly, oh, he sucks. He ends up in Jacksonville. They figured out, oh, he sucks. Now you have him, and now you're realizing, oh, he sucks. Hey, he looks the part. You know who he reminds me of? Not from the body type standpoint or the style of play, but just of a height, weight, speed specimen. He reminds me a lot of the safety from USC a long time ago. They wanted him to be the next Sean Taylor because he was big, he was fast, he was physical in college, but when he got to the NFL, none of that shit ever came to fruition. I don't know why I can't think of his damn name. But he was, and I remember because I was playing Madden in those days. He was a Madden player's dream because he's this big 6'3", 225 pound safety that ran like a 4.4. So, on Madden, his speed was like 92, and he's big, and he's got this. He was a tremendous athlete, but he sucked in the NFL. I mean, bounced around from team to team, played some special teams, but he was never what he was supposed to be. That's kind of what Josh Jones was. He was projected to be a much better football player because he was a great athlete, and it never came to fruition. So anyway, I digress. Taylor Mays. Thank you, Abel Ambrosio. Taylor Mays is his name. I didn't think anybody would know who the hell I was talking about. Thank you, Abel. Taylor Mays is his name. That's what Josh Jones reminds me of. Now, again, they're not the same body type. Josh Jones is more angular, and Taylor Mays was thick. He was built, but he just wasn't any good. He was a straight line speed guy. He couldn't move laterally. He couldn't change directions well. But boy, Taylor Mays was a big guy, and he could run, and he could hit at USC. Really wasn't a great hitter in the NFL, but anyway, I digress. Yes, Abel Ambrosio. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Taylor Mays. Thank you. It was killing me. I was racking my brain, and I would not have come up with it. I would not have come up with it until after the show. I probably would have looked him up. Anyway, I digress. Let's see. Oh, Aaron JBC says that Sebastian Joseph Day is on the Chargers. There you go. I watched the Chargers and the Texans today. I just couldn't remember what game it was. So that's where I saw him. He made a play in that game. And yeah, he's a good football player. He's definitely on the Chargers. Thank you for that. You guys are on it, man. You guys are on it tonight. Joe Rockhead J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, sup, Lou? Sup, Joe Rockhead? My winners and losers was donations. Seems like the league sees my picks and makes sure I lose. Hey, you're not alone this year, man. The league has been crazy. And honestly, I've said that my problem is I try to make sense out of things that don't make sense. And this year hasn't really made, like this one made sense. The 49ers winning this game makes sense, right? Like they own the Rams. And so this made sense. And I decided that Jimmy G stunk so bad last week that this Rams, defense is going to be solid enough, even though they haven't been great themselves. They're going to be solid enough, but I was more like that. Their offense is going to do enough, and Jimmy G is going to turn it over once, and they're going to win in a close game. I didn't expect this to be a higher scoring affair. But the Rams moved the football. They just couldn't get in the end zone. And so I guessed wrong. But the reason I picked them is the same reason I just said. It didn't make sense picking the Rams. And I was figuring this is the perfect example of something not making sense. So I'm going to do it. And it didn't. It backfired. It didn't make sense, and because it didn't make sense. Anyway, let's see. Take a couple more hashtags, and then we'll get out of here. Knowledge says Ron gotta go. He's not going anywhere. I keep trying to tell you guys, he's not going anywhere. This is how you know Ron's not going anywhere. And I'll save it for tomorrow's show. Because I got a couple of things to say, and so I'll just save it for tomorrow's show. Because usually the Tuesday show, there's not a lot going on, so that'll be a talking point for me. Dario Armstrong II says, Lou, I know Ronald isn't getting fired, but I really like Byron Leftwich. If you had to choose, who would you rather have, Leftwich, Bieniemy, or Brian Flores? I would personally want an offensive-minded guy with all the weapons that we have on offense. I'd like to see an offensive-minded guy come in there and develop either Sam Howell or draft a quarterback that can take advantage of the weapons that we have, and then find a solid defensive coordinator. Because you're more likely to lose your offensive coordinator if he's any good than your defensive coordinator if he's any good. Now, defensive guys get jobs too, like Robert Saleh, for instance. But the likelihood is you'll lose your offensive coordinator before you lose your defensive coordinator. So I would prefer an offensive-minded guy and then just find a defensive coordinator that can get the job done versus a defensive-minded guy like Brian Flores, which we have a solid defense, but still have issues on offense if you don't have a good play caller. And Brian Flores' teams were never good on offense. They were really good on defense. So I would like to stay away from that if at all possible. But again, we're talking about something that is a absurd conversation because Ron's not getting fired anytime soon. So, yeah, doesn't make a ton of sense to really even have the conversation. And you said it yourself. Like, I know Ronald isn't getting fired. So, Octane ATL3 writes, Bravos leaning towards a repeat, my boy. Absolutely. And you know what? This was a hell of a journey. Now we got to complete the shit. We lost tonight, got blanked, and you know what? The fellas were tired. You sweep the Mets. It's an emotional high because you realize you pretty much locked up the division, but you still got to win one game or they got to lose a game, and they got rained out today against the Nats, and so they'll play probably a doubleheader today, and so those are shorter games, so it makes it easier for the Mets to win two games just like that. It also makes it easier for them to just lose one game, but let's just not worry about that. Let's just take care of the Marlins tomorrow, lock up the division, pop champagne, and get ready for whomever comes out of the wild card, whether it be the Cardinals or the Phillies, right? Let's just go ahead and do that. But once we punch our ticket, I feel really good, man. I feel really good. The bullpen's playing ball again, just like they were last year. We got a dangerous lineup, and we could put so many different combinations together. Our defense is nasty. There aren't many holes. I think we're the most complete team in baseball. That includes the Astros and the Dodgers. I think we're the most complete team in baseball. So I like our chances. I'll bet on us. Let's see. Siddharth P writes, Commanders Commanders, Redskins football team, whatever the name, they all make me depressed. You're not alone. You are not alone. Yeah. It's a lot of us out here struggling, man. Octane ATL3 says Braves leaning on a repeat. Leaning on a repeat. Yes, sir. I really like our chances, like I said. But we already know what it is. We're going to have to go through the Dodgers to get there. They're going to be that team. And I want us to be that team that's where it's not you got to go through the Dodgers. Now you got to go through us. We won the championship last year, you know? But got to get there again. The Dodgers are always there. Says the Braves rested today. Well, you can't rest tomorrow. Beat their ass, get this division chip, and let's punch our ticket. Let's not make this go down to the last game of the season because I know the Mets are going to beat the Nationals. Anyway, I digress. All right. Niners do it again. They did it again. 24-9 over the Los Angeles Rams. 7th consecutive victory in the regular season for these 49ers over a Sean McVay coached Rams football team. It's the second time in McVay's career as a head coach that his team has not scored 10 points in a game. The other time against these same San Francisco 49ers back when Jared Goff was the quarterback. And it's either the first or second time that he has not scored a touchdown in a game. Again, 49ers at your service. So back to the drawing board, and he better figure this shit out quick because these 49ers, they coming and they knocking on the door again in about three or 4 weeks. You got the Cowboys, then you got the Panthers, then you have a bye, and then you have these same 49ers coming to get seconds. And if you're not ready, it's 8 in a row. So they better figure it out, and really they better figure it out fast because the Cowboys defense is just as fast and ferocious as this 49ers defense. And if you couldn't figure this shit out, you could be in some trouble next week with the offensive line woes that you have and all the injuries that you have, and you lost your backup center. Now you're on the backup to the backup with Michael Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence and you know Odigizua and all those guys coming to town. Shit is not pretty. Tristan Hill and all those guys are playing well. It could get ugly. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Either way. Niners 2-2. Rams 2-2. Cardinals 2-2. Seahawks 2-2. Everybody in that division is at 500 at 2-2. Didn't think I would be saying that, but it speaks to the larger point, which I will, bring up again. I've already talked about it a million times, but this season is unlike any we've seen. So that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie T. You guys have a good one. God bless, and good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.